Hello, Tadeo.
Narnia.
I have questions from our viewers.
All right.
The first question is about genetics of the elementals. Do they have genetics that are comparable to ours? And could a human be hybridized with them?
No. You must understand that elementals, for the most part, present themselves, solidify, crystallize themselves at a moment's notice out of what might be poetically referred to as the clay of the collective consciousness. They can reabsorb themselves, so to speak, into the collective consciousness field and then crystallize or project themselves through that field, made out of that consciousness energy field, electromagnetic energy, when they focus themselves that way to present themselves in any kind of form or shape. While they are crystallized, they may take on a kind of representation of DNA to hold that shape, but it's not the same as the DNA that you experience in your physical form, exactly. So in order for any kind of DNA or genetic material to be taken from an elemental when they are in what appears to be solid form, they would actually have to be slightly densified even further. Then it's possible that DNA can be taken, but again, it is relatively ephemeral, relatively changing all the time, fluctuating in a way that, if not vibrationally compatible with a physical being, by going through some kind of a harmonic stabilization process, could actually wind up being very detrimental to the physical being, because the elemental sample of DNA would still be fluctuating in a way that may cause the physical DNA chains to break apart. So it is not recommended.
Okay. Um, this question is about dogs and how they get lost in smelling things outdoors. And are they actually connecting with elementals when they're doing that?
Well, not all the time, no. They can sometimes, just like several animals on your planet can, sense the idea of elemental consciousness and focus on it. But generally speaking, you would have to take it on a moment to moment, case by case basis in terms of what it is they are sensing.
Okay. And cats also can connect with elementals, I would imagine.
In many cases, cats can see them almost any time they wish. The idea, of course, is it depends on what they're focused on. But yes, cats' senses are a little bit more attuned to the idea of the elemental vibration. It's within their range of senses on more occasions than not.
Okay. I noticed that children, when they are young, they're really into like fairy houses and elves and things like that. And they will even wait to see fairies. But as they get older, they stop and they aren't interested anymore because they think they're not real anymore. What's the cause of that in our society?
Well, you have actually said it yourself in the question. They are taught out of believing that those things are real, and therefore they shut down that portion of their ability to sense it. Plus, it can sometimes be important for them to not necessarily pay attention to that level of reality so much anymore, to allow themselves to focus on the themes they chose to explore as physical beings. But it just again depends upon their theme, it depends upon the person. But in this time of opening the senses and remembering who you are, you can now begin to reconnect while not necessarily losing focus on the theme that you chose to experience in physical reality, because now many of those themes contain the concept of seeing beyond the physical realm, knowing that there are other levels of consciousness there that you can communicate and connect to. So these attributes can be brought back, but many people will have the requirement of a kind of process to unlearn what it is they learned that prevents them from being able to perceive those kinds of levels of reality.
Yes, I guess in a sense it's not unusual that they back away from that idea to integrate better with society, so to speak, or their friends and peers. And then at some point they may come back to it and remember how connected they were
Yes,
earlier in life.
yes,
Um, does Willa have any human ancestors on Earth now?
yes. Not going to name names if that's what you're asking.
I didn't ask it.
I understand, and I wasn't referring to you.
Okay. And do all beings go through a type of life review when they die?
For the most part, yes, it's quite common because the whole idea is to utilize the experience that you gained by having a physical reality experience, adding it to your knowledge of self and expansion of self so that you can decide what to choose next. So it's relatively common. There are a few exceptions, but they're rare.
So when a Sasani being goes through life review, how would that be different from a human life review?
Well, it would only be different in kind. It wouldn't be different in structure necessarily. The idea, again, being that, like you, we focus on our experiences, the consequences of choices made, the effects that it may have had on a variety of different people, places, things, so on and so forth. And we, again, learn from a different perspective of that. We have a different experience of it now from that new point of view. That, again, as I said, we add to ourselves and our understanding of what it is we may choose to experience next.
And also, as humans, when we go through life review, we actually experience any pain and suffering we've inflicted upon other people as if it's happening to us. Is that correct?
Intentionally applied, yes. Unintentionally, not necessarily.
Okay. So in your civilization, of course, people never behave like that. So they would never encounter that in their life review, as opposed to a human who probably does hurt other people in the course of their lifetime.
Yes, generally speaking. Again, there may be rare exceptions for a variety of reasons, but generally speaking, we do not experience the idea of the negativity.
Okay. Um, do animals, when they're coming to the end of their physical existence, do they get to choose when they leave like humans do? Or is it, or, if they're being hunted or whatever, is this all part of their choice or it's happening at another level and at the physical level, they just simply want to survive continuously?
In a sense, it's a choice from a higher level, although animals, because of their connection to nature and because of their willingness to allow synchronicity to occur in the way that it naturally does, will not necessarily have to make a choice beyond the choice they made before incarnation. They will simply trust the timing of the idea of their experience of physical reality and may be open to many different pathways by which they may leave physical reality, again, based on what appears to be the synchronous randomness of different events as it occurs and as it serves all other beings that are experiencing life on the planet.
And in general, since so often many of them are eaten in one way or another, do they come in with a deeper commitment to being of service in that sense, a more willingness to participate as opposed to human attitudes about being killed and eaten and things like that?
To some degree, yes. Although to put it in the framework of willingness is a little bit different because that's a human perspective. So again, it's more of a deep understanding of how things work on the particular level that they are experiencing. And they are simply open to the idea without, shall we say, examining the pros and cons that would then lead to the concept you're talking about called willingness. They simply go with the flow of the reality, knowing that in whatever way, shape, or form it unfolds, it serves the best of all concerned for a variety of reasons they don't even necessarily have to be aware of.
So when we go in the forest, what is a good way to connect with nature spirits?
Well, Willa has begun to give you certain kinds of ideas and exercises to be able to begin to enhance your senses in that way. That, in some sense, is what the cryptic meditations and the cryptic process is all about. So, by, again, as always, of course, following the formula we have shared with all of you, and by focusing a little bit more, especially now on this latest chapter of the cryptic meditation, where you begin to connect with animals, and that will prepare you more strongly, more, shall we say, energetically, for the next phase, that is connecting to the elemental path, which shall happen in the fall. So you are already being given a particular pathway, a particular process from Willa to be able to enhance your ability to sense and commune with the idea of the elemental beings. But now, at this phase, you are going through the animals first, since they already have the connection to the idea of the elementals in most cases, especially in what you call the wild. By connecting with them, you're going to pick up many of the attributes that they already contain, that they will vibrationally pass along to you, that gives them the ability to commune with those elementals.
And how can we learn to communicate telepathically with animals?
Again, it is mostly through the concept of the deep feeling and imagery that you can create in your mind to project to them. That can be the beginning of it, is think in pictures, not in words. See the idea happening in your mind with deep feeling attached to it, deep emotion. This is one of the things that the idea of the second phase of the animal path is all about, is to truly be in love with the animals that you connect with. Truly feel this deeply in your heart and in your soul and in your spirit and in your mind, like family, true connections, true bonds, like family, deeply in love, and then add pictures to that of the idea that you wish to see in the communion as it can take place. But while you're doing that, be very aware also at the same time of any belief systems you may have that are fear-based, so that you can let them go, and so they will not, in a sense, stop the process of the connection that you are making.
And to some degree, if you're familiar with doing meditation or listening to music and going into an altered state of consciousness, then that could also be useful in putting you in the proper state to be able to communicate using pictures and things like that.
If that permission slip works for you, then yes, absolutely, you can use that slip.
Yeah, so the idea is find your permission slips also that will enhance your altered state to be able to receive the information.
Yes.
Okay. Do elementals act as guardians for certain locations?
In some sense, yes. They will create a vibrational bubble that will interact with anyone entering that particular field in a way that allows the person to either feel that they can go forward or should go back.
And then what elementals that seem to be near waterfalls and rivers and things like that, how can you expand the connection with those kinds of elementals? Is it different than, say, trees or, well, actually trees are not elementals, but
No, but they may be associated with elementals as well.
right.
So again, it just depends upon what you're attracted to do. The basic techniques we've already talked about are the same. It's just a matter of how you feel about that connection and what kind of imagery you can bring up in your mind that makes that connection more plausible.
And it seems like a lot of it is the willingness to just be still and receive information instead of chattering in your mind,
Yes.
which then blocks the communication from coming.
That's why we said it's got to be the idea of feelings and pictures more than the idea of words.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean that words can't sometimes work, but again, this will happen naturally if they're necessary.
And one person was experiencing elementals requesting an offering be made to the forest. Can you elaborate on why that might be? Or
Because to give is to receive. In other words, in any kind of a relationship or communication, there does need to be some expression of willingness of exchange. So the idea is simply one way of interpreting the concept of the giving of yourself, the offering of a gift, shows your willingness to have a commitment, your willingness to have a relationship, for you are also asking to receive something.
And can you elaborate on why Willa has two hearts?
The hybridization that occurred in certain genetic lineages led to a more efficient system of storing oxygen in the body for the purpose of accessing higher frequency domains and information. The oxygenation of the body is of paramount importance in speeding up the vibrational resonance of the physical form and having the idea of not exactly two hearts, but more chambers in the heart than you have that makes it function as if it's doubled, allows for a more efficient distribution of oxygen throughout the system, and also a greater amount of oxygen throughout the system, that then increases the probability of raising the frequency to the exact pitch required for easier connection to higher frequency realms of consciousness and other dimensions of experience.
So just like when Daryl does deep breathing in order to make the connection with you, the idea is that she has a much higher level of oxygen in her system than we do?
Yes, and this is also why we have mentioned from time to time that there is more oxygen on our planet in the atmosphere. Not a lot, but enough that it allows for the stabilization of that frequency to be common.
Okay. Is there a way that you can support elementals in this time of planetary transition, since they seem to have an important role in keeping the Earth in balance?
Well, in a sense, the idea of taking on the role from your side of keeping the Earth in balance and doing the things that will help stabilize the environment in positive ways, increasing the idea of the natural world and making those connections from your side will be something that will also allow them more opportunity to do so from their side. So the whole idea of making the connection with them and taking actions in your reality that are more representative of enhancing the environment, stabilizing the environment in a more natural way, is what you can do from your side, while they do what they do from their side. It's not entirely up to them. This has to be a relationship. It has to be, in a sense, a 50-50 proposition.
It just occurred to me that the connection that elementals experience with Earth and nature is a profoundly deep love affair, in a sense.
Yes.
And that the more that you love Earth and you love all the elements of Earth, the more you are putting yourself in a state that's similar to what an elemental might experience.
Exactly. And therefore, like we have said with regard to extraterrestrial contact, you have to meet them halfway. You have to bring your vibrational frequency at least much closer to the level that they operate on in order for you to perceive them and in order for you to interact with them in the ways that will allow for the acceleration of the balance of the natural world of Earth.
Now, one person had an experience where they were with a grove of trees and suddenly shifted to a parallel reality where they realized that the forest is inhabited with tree people. In other words, the people of the forest are the trees, and that they are a community that has very strong bonds, and they're also very welcoming of the human consciousness.
That's why we say that the trees are, in a sense, the ambassadors between humans and the natural world, because they're connected to the idea of physical humans, they're connected to the idea of the elementals, and in a sense they act as the go-between. So they're always welcoming you into their reality to act as, well, for lack of a better term, brokers between the two different civilizations of human and elemental. That's the common bond. That's the common frequency. That's the common interface, are the trees.
So they experience each other as individual consciousnesses
And collective, both.
and a collective at the same time. And they have young people and old people, and it's just it's a community of being.
It is. But again, when you say young people and old people, we understand what you mean in terms of time and the growth of trees.
Yeah.
But don't assign a human perspective to that because they don't see it exactly in that way. Remember that they can perceive things in parallel realities in multiple dimensions a little bit differently than you can. And the idea of young and old has a particular perspective to them, but it's not exactly the human perspective.
And yet you need the older trees in a forest in order to share their energy with the younger trees.
Yes, yes. But again, all we're simply saying is the terminology that you're using, the definitions that you're using, have a particular human bent to them that is not experienced exactly in the same way by the tree consciousness.
And one last thing about trees, that they seem to have a very generous spirit in general.
Yes.
It's, and their genetics are actually more complex than ours,
Yes.
correct? So
Yes.
they are actually highly evolved beings in
Yes.
many respects.
Yes. In fact, the very idea that they are apparently to you immobile requires the extra genetics and the extra abilities because they can't move away from things like humans can. Therefore, they have to have more adaptability to a variety of situations, hence a more complex genetic structure.
And they communicate with each other chemically, so they let each other know that there's a danger or all kinds of communication
Yes.
that happens.
Yes, yes.
So it's very sophisticated, and yet it's hidden to human consciousness unless you shift your vibration to be able to perceive what is actually happening.
Yes, but it's not hidden on purpose. It is simply the idea of the limitations that human consciousness has placed on itself because long ago, when humans were much more connected in their understanding of their expression of nature, it wasn't hidden at all. It was understood very clearly.
So that would be Native Americans, Lemurians, those beings were much more.
Early Atlanteans, yes. And not leaving out the idea of people in other parts of your planet, because many of them also had a more natural way of relating to nature.
Yes, I think almost every continent had its share of shamanic beings
Yes.
that were connecting with
Yes,
nature.
yes, yes. And it was much more common in those societies to understand those things as natural.
Now, one person has a boa constrictor and he wants to know how to communicate with that being and if it's possible to create a relationship and an emotional connection between a reptilian being, and I'm talking about actual reptile, and human.
Well, of course it is. So again, many of the things we've already said will apply as well. The idea of the deep emotional bond, the idea of using imagery instead of words. The reptile will also assist you in understanding exactly how to frame those images, how to frame those emotions in its context, in its quote unquote language.
So you're basically saying be the snake, and then you will know how to talk to the snake.
In essence, yes, and the snake will help you if it really senses a deep willingness and a deep bond in your consciousness that wishes to do so. So again, this is why it's so important to have that deep, loving, vibrational, harmonic bond, because then the being will sense that you really desire a connection and will help you with that connection by sending the imagery and the feelings as well that will help you understand how to focus in on its particular way of creating a communication.
Okay, I think that's helpful. Um, let's see. I'm going to switch over to a question having to do with the precursors.
Yes.
And we wanted to give you an opportunity to clarify the idea of whether precursors were actually born here on the planet or whether they are actually
Yes.
extraterrestrial.
We understand that there may have been a slip in translation when we first talked about that concept. And this is why we have recently begun to talk about people born on the planet who have similar hybridized genetics to precursors as being preparers rather than calling themselves precursors. Precursor, by definition, is something that comes before something else. And therefore, since you're already on the planet, you can't be precursors because you're not coming to the planet, you're on the planet. But you can be preparers. And the preparers can exhibit some of the same vibrational frequencies as the precursors. But precursors are born off the planet. They are hybrids from off the planet, are not born on Earth. Who is born on Earth are preparers. We apologize for any confusion in translation.
Um, did you say your ship is called Nexus? Someone,
No, it's not called Nexus, but the idea is that it can use nexus points in order for its ability to shift location to location. In a sense, any ship that uses that technology can be called a Nexus style ship.
and was the USFO that crashed at Roswell just as alive as that?
No,
And
different kind of technology altogether, a little bit more akin to your understanding of technology.
do stories and fictional universes actually exist in their own right? And we are sort of seeing them and tapping into their energy when we read something or think about them.
They can. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily all experienced in the same kind of physical way that you experience your reality, but that doesn't mean that they're any less real. So, when we say that they're all real in one way, shape, or form, you have to understand that that may include a multitude of dimensions, including the spirit realm. So, they're not necessarily physical in the way that you know it, but they are real. You are tapping into a real reality on some level of consciousness. Now, again, some of them may be absolutely the way you imagine them, and some of them may be a little bit different. But somewhere along the line, all the attributes are real, whether they all belong in one reality or several.
Okay. Um, one individual, when they were a child, they dreamed that they basically visited inner Earth. And they felt that they were being teased by adults about this idea.
Yes.
Um, is there an actual inner Earth culture or an inner Earth reality?
Yes, but it's not actually physically in your Earth. It's in another dimension. Many people may mistake the idea that it's inside your Earth physically because of how they may arrive there by going through different portals that sometimes can be underground or in caves or what have you. But without knowing it, they may have actually literally shifted into a different dimensional reality and still assume that they're on the Earth or in the Earth that they were originally on, which they're not until they go back through the portal and come back out onto their original reality, so to speak. But the idea is that there are other dimensions that are perceived as being inside physical objects, such as a planet, but they're not literally there necessarily. They can be, but they're not literally there in your case. So people that find themselves in what they perceive to be inner Earth are actually in another dimension that they've shifted to without necessarily knowing it.
And can you tell us anything about what it's like there?
Well, there are many different kinds of places there. There isn't just one place that people go to. There are shells within shells within shells within shells of dimensions within dimensions within dimensions within dimensions. So it just depends on what frequency you entered the portal in as to where you wind up.
And also what's relevant to your life theme in terms of what information you receive
Yes.
about that environment?
Yes. So there isn't one place I can tell you about.
In fact, aren't most of these things sort of geared towards what will excite us on a deep level based on our own unique?
Well, generally speaking, or they're certainly geared toward the idea of the kind of information that you agreed to participate in the theme of exploration on Earth.
And that's why people have so many different kinds of experiences because it's all uniquely tailored
Yes,
for their consciousness,
of course it is. How could it be otherwise?
right? Yes, because you're doing it. This individual is very excited about Atlantis, and
Yes.
he wanted to know, or she, um, some hot spots to go to tap into Atlantean energy and give themselves the opportunity to receive information there.
Well, certainly the Bahamas, the areas you know as Cuba, the area you know as the Yucatan, and even across the sea, the area that you know as Crete. Some areas in Spain, some areas in the area you call North Africa and ancient Egypt do still have some Atlantean remnants to the ideas of survivors that went there. So any of those places can be energy centers that you can gravitate yourself to based on what you're attracted to do or experience that can allow you as a permission slip more efficacy in tapping into Atlantean information.
And I know the Bimini Road, many people think that it's underwater,
Yes,
and you
yes.
can actually swim along and look at the Bimini Road.
Yes, well, it wasn't originally a road, it's a collapsed wall.
Oh, yeah, because it just looks like these huge concrete blocks
Yes,
that stretch on for a long period of time, and you can swim along it.
yes.
Um,
Well, if you look on a map that shows you what that area looked like when the water level was lower during the Ice Age, the ocean level was lower, you will see what the actual outline of that main Atlantean island was. And you can see more clearly when the water is lower, where other locations also allowed for cities to be built. But again, remember, even though many people depict the concept of ancient Atlantis as looking sort of Grecian, the true architecture of Atlantis is more the idea of Mayan or Aztec.
and it's quite rural in the sense of the society itself, yes?
Well, in a sense, yes, there were some main city parts, but for the most part, yes, the cities were quite open. There was quite a lot of rural countryside that surrounded them and was utilized for farming and different purposes.
Will a time come where we'll actually be able to, in a sense, see because our vibration is higher? Like, can you see Atlantis from
Yes,
your vibrational level?
absolutely. That's why we're telling you the architecture isn't what most people think.
That's so interesting. So we're capable of achieving that in our lifetime, yes?
Yes, of course.
Well, that's interesting. Um, okay, so this question has to do with interacting with different versions of a person. And does each version represent a different, distinct soul that you're looking at when you,
If you're talking about the idea of one single body, then no. Doesn't represent different souls, it represents different aspects of the same soul.
okay. And then when people are a different version because they're in my reality that I prefer, does that different version depend on me or is there something that they do? So does this mean that if I experience something that I view as negative, it's up to me to change my vibration, which will then give me a different version of that person?
That can happen, yes. But the idea is that you're taking some information from them in your telepathic contact and you're rendering out of your own energy, out of your own consciousness, a reasonable facsimile, not only of what you're getting from them, but also what you're taking from your own belief systems and what you need to see. So yes, very often changing your frequency coming from a different place will allow you to, quote unquote, manufacture a different version of them because you've shifted to another reality where there already is a different version of them. Because now you're coming from a different place, a different frequency, a different reality.
Yeah, occasionally you will actually hear of somebody having a negative interaction with someone and then going into a meditative state, communicating with that person on a higher level in a sense, and balancing their own energy in relation to what was communicated to them, and then going back and reconnecting with the physical person and finding that their behavior has also changed.
Correct, but the truth is their behavior hasn't changed because the person they're dealing with is actually a different person.
Okay, so they're getting another version of that person.
Because they're in a different parallel version of Earth. Yes.
It's very interesting because it really does shift the focus back to your own personal responsibility, but at the same time, you're not to blame for other people's negative behavior. Or the fact that you see another person's negative behavior does not mean that's a one-on-one reflection of your own negativity.
Correct. The issues that other people may have that you attract into your life may have nothing to do with your issues, but there's a reason why they're there. It might be because you need to help them. It might be because you need to act as a sounding board in some way or a reflection to them for their issues, whether they know it or not. But generally speaking, though it can sometimes be a one-to-one reflection, it isn't always. You have to have the discernment to be able to tell what's actually going on and why that person has been attracted or at least allowed by you into your life.
Yes, and the idea is what you do with the transmission or the receipt of information from that person.
Absolutely.
It puts it back in your court that what you do with it will determine the
Yes.
effect that you get out of it.
Yes, because no matter how the situation originated, whether it was created from negativity, no matter what anyone else's experience or opinion is or perspective is of the situation, you still get to determine how the situation will affect you because you're the one affecting yourself with your relationship and definition of that particular situation. So you can always get a benefit no matter what happens, depending on what you choose to do in relation to that circumstance.
And when people die at the same time, like in a plane crash or something like that, do they
Yes.
have an awareness of the other people who are transitioning at the same time that they do?
Sometimes, not always. Again, it depends upon their vibrational path.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, like that a whole group of people would get on a plane and when it crashes, they're all transitioning simultaneously.
Yes. Well, it's not really, if you stop and think about it, any more mysterious than all the people getting on the plane because they happen to be going to the same city. It's just that they're going to a city they didn't necessarily realize they were going to.
Yeah, that's intense.
Well, again, it's no more mysterious than the kind of orchestration that happens when you get on any particular kind of a device. So again, the orchestration of getting a certain amount of people on a certain vehicle to go to a certain city is an orchestration. This is no different.
And it's also part, if the people may not be aware that they've chosen that, but at some level, they've taken the exit in a sense.
Yes.
For whatever their specific purpose was or reasoning
Yes.
was, or it was their time.
Whether they know it or not, they have bought a ticket to that particular destination in a coordinated orchestration with the others. Those that haven't, you will find, as you often hear, will find themselves not necessarily getting on that plane for one reason or another synchronistically.
Yeah, it certainly brings back memories of the 9/11 situation. And
Yes. And again, none of this excuses the perpetration of these particular kinds of events, but people will take advantage of whatever they need to take advantage of for a variety of reasons. And remember that sometimes those reasons are a higher level of themselves may be willing to go out that way to help the people that remain behind realize how to make sure things like that aren't necessarily opportunities for people in the future ever again. Because there are many ways that you can leave physical reality. It does not have to be through the idea of disaster or terrorism or anything like that. You will find a way when it's your time to find a way. But the idea can be that certainly those kinds of ways don't need to be the ways if you feel that that is too disruptive to the psyche that allows you to find a peaceful situation in your reality.
So, is there anything we can do to consciously choose the way we die instead of it just randomly happening when the time is right?
Well, yes, of course there is. There are several ways. But the idea, of course, is you don't necessarily have to pay attention to that, or you don't really have to necessarily know about that. If there is purpose, then yes, you can know. A well-known story on your planet comes from an individual known as Cochise, who knew the exact time of his death and predicted it. But again, it's not always important that you know that. If there is purpose to it, you will know. But again, the only way it's most likely you will know if you need to know is by, guess what? Following the formula.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Because anything, any kind of information that is truly relevant for you to know about on your journey, on your path, will come to you when you follow the formula, because the formula leaves nothing relevant out.
For example, like with Steve Irwin, he was definitely following his passion when he was swimming with that stingray.
Yes.
And yet that turned out to be the way that he was going to exit the planet.
And many people will choose to do that while they're doing something they love to do. In a sense, they're quote unquote dying happy.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good way to approach it then. Do what excites you the most with integrity and following all the other elements of the formula. And if it is your time, that will, at least you will go out doing something you love doing.
Absolutely, if you want to put it in those pragmatic terms, that can work. Again, please do remember that when you do transition, you will understand exactly why you may have chosen that path, and it'll be perfectly fine.
And so, energetically and mechanically speaking, what does it mean to be grounded or ungrounded?
Well, again, in true alignment with yourself is grounding. Misalignment, being out of alignment with yourself, is ungrounding, for lack of a better term, to put it in the most simplistic way.
So, in a sense, when you follow a shamanic path, do you need to keep a foot in both worlds, so to speak?
As long as you find that it is not your time to transition, then automatically, yes, because any shaman or anyone in balance acts like a link or a bridge between the physical and non-physical realities. So yes, you're automatically a bridge. Therefore, one foot in each realm is exactly what needs to happen.
And that's a skill unto itself.
Yes, it is. It's an art like any.
Now, this was the highest asked question, and that was, what is driving or causing the splitting of parallel realities, and why is it happening now?
What is driving it is the freedom to choose and the recognition that your reality and that you are bigger than you thought. You're coming to the realization that you, quote unquote, occupy more space than just your physical bodies. And therefore your urging or yearning to be more of yourself is making you more aware of the things that you are connected to, the other realities that you're actually participating in creating with your consciousness. Therefore, this splitting is a natural result. The driving of this awareness is a natural result of the expansion of consciousness into more levels, or I'll put it this way, the expansion of your awareness of your consciousness already existing in more levels. And that's what's driving it at this time, because as we have said before, you're now at the end of the cycle of forgetting and now beginning the cycle of remembering more of who you are. This is just the timing, the natural timing you have created for the overall collective theme going through the different cycles of change on the earth. This is what Earth is all about. And therefore, that's why this is the timing of it. Just in the same way that the timing of a graduation from any particular level of class or school has its own timing, because you've learned what you need to learn. So you move on to the next level. So you're at the end of the cycle now You've gone through all the different kinds of machinations of negative and positive ideas that are relevant for the Earth cycle. Now you're expanding your awareness into other dimensions, becoming aware of the fact that you exist in other dimensions, and therefore that naturally drives this particular splitting experience.
It almost sounds like it's sort of the birth of Homo galacticus.
The beginning of it, yes. That's where you're moving to. You're going to the next class. You're going to college. You're going to university now. You are going out into the world and also starting to apply these ideas. In a sense, you are actually now moving into the job market of the galaxy.
Um, this is a current event question that I think I'll ask.
We may or may not be able to address it. We will see.
Right. So the question is that there are some people who really want to have the vaccine, and they feel like their consciousness has been swayed, or they're fearful that they're harboring beliefs that'll make it harmful to them because there's a lot of controversy around it. Is there a permission slip that an individual who wants to have the vaccine can use to eliminate any subconscious issues around doing it?
Well, this is a process, as we have said, because it involves the process of getting in touch with your belief systems, finding the ones that might be negative or fear-based and letting them go so that you give yourself clearer discernment through synchronicity that comes to you as to what kind of choice is actually more in alignment with who you truly are. And that's all we can say at this time about that.
Okay. And this also comes back to the idea of our history as humans, and obviously we're starting to see the future aspects. When we look to the past, technically, of why primates and human DNA is so similar, is there anything you can share with us about that? Why it is that way?
Well, that's not really a mystery. As we have said, the Anunnaki chose an evolved hominid on your planet from the idea of the evolution of the primates up to a certain period, such as Homo erectus, to then inject their own genetic material into to create Homo sapien. So why should it be a mystery if you know that the original material used to create Homo sapien with the addition of the Anunnaki extraterrestrial genetics came from a pool of primates? Why should your genetic material be that different?
Well, I think it's also, were they surprised when the beings they created had such a high propensity for violence?
Some of them, a little bit, yes. They didn't necessarily expect that.
Did they think that the alien DNA would mitigate that?
Some of them thought it might, but remember that the reason why that group of Anunnaki were recalled was because they had acted out of hubris.
Well, there you go. That's part of what happens with humans too. We act out of hubris at
Exactly.
times.
Therefore, it wasn't necessarily too surprising since they obviously had the potential for that even in their own DNA.
I see. Okay. And one question that came up was, why we experience pain in childbirth, since it's a natural process, and it seems like other species don't experience the degree that we do. So,
Yes, but it's not a natural process anymore ever since you were hybridized because you were given certain features that were not there originally. In a sense, it's like you're giving birth to an alien that has a bigger head than you otherwise would have had as Homo erectus. Certain things in your genetic makeup changed, but certain things didn't change that much. And one of the things that didn't change that much was the idea of the birth canal. But since the idea of the increase, the enlargement of the cranium was one of the genetic alterations, then yes, actually human childbirth is not natural.
well, that explains that, because certainly had a lot of humans dying in childbirth,
Yes,
many centuries.
yes.
Um, this is a question about paradox. Can you
Yes.
name the main, most basic of all large paradoxes, things that cannot exist together by the rules of physical reality, but obviously do, that we as humans need to always be in conscious recognition with in order to experience life holistically?
We would answer that the largest paradox is your ability to even perceive that paradoxes exist. Because the idea of your focus in physical reality can be so limiting that you don't necessarily often perceive the concept that something contradictory can also simultaneously exist with what you expect to exist, and yet it does. So you have developed the ability to perceive that two seemingly contradictory things can coexist side by side, which helps drive you back toward the center and the balance point. So, in a sense, the biggest paradox is that you can perceive paradox at all.
Wow. And I guess on a day-to-day basis, it can be helpful to tune into the idea that there's other levels of you where what appears to be this or that is this and that.
Correct.
Um, if you reach a plateau, what's the simplest way to raise your vibration?
Well, first of all, to know that you haven't reached the ultimate plateau, knowing there is a higher plateau is the first step. But again, you have to allow for pause to happen in the natural order of things. Sometimes synchronicity will say, no, don't go any further right now. Stay here, ruminate, learn from what you have already experienced in climbing to this level. Stay here for a while and rest, absorb. Then, when it is time for you to continue to climb and raise your frequency, continue to follow the formula, and a new plateau will be provided through synchronicity. When it's time for synchronicity to say, it's time to move on, it will show you. But if synchronicity says no, no moving right now, then accept the plateau as a place to learn something, not as an interruption.
Okay. And something that we've talked about before having to do with trauma, and individuals who have experienced trauma in childhood and that are continuing to recreate the experience in the present moment.
Because they still identify themselves as actually being that child, which they're not, because they are a different person. Now, it doesn't mean you can't continue to use the sense of continuity, the ability to create continuity to make it seem as if you're just the adult of that particular child. But you can now play with continuity in a way that will allow you to make whatever connections to that experience you feel you still need to, if you believe you need to learn something from it that you can apply in your present reality. But at the same time, knowing that that child isn't you, because as you become a new person, you create not only what appears to be a new present and a new future, but also a new past, and therefore a new childhood that leads to whatever the new person is that you are now today. So maintain whatever portions of that experience or recreate them for yourself if you wish to, if you believe that there is still something you can get from it. But at the same time, paradoxically, concurrently, allow yourself to also realize that whatever it was that that child experienced is not something that you experienced. That's a different person.
And you can change your relationship to the other person that had that experience. You don't have to abandon them in a
No, not
sense,
at all.
or
You can, as we have suggested, start informing yourself here from your future self instead of your past self, and at the same time realize that you are the future self of that child if you wish to be. Therefore, send waves of energy, compassion, and love to that child. And that creates this kind of bootstrapping loop where you bring yourself up to the present being that you choose to be now by having sent from the present being you are now energy back to that child to give them the opportunity to go through a process of becoming the being that you are now.
I think that's very helpful.
All right.
And then lastly, just a question about finding your most powerful permission slips. Um, I'm guessing that the idea of finding your most powerful permission slip is something that you explore.
It is. Because remember, the reason you're attracted to use something is because it will work for you, or you wouldn't be attracted to it. So if there is curiosity to explore, if there's an attraction to a particular technique, tool, ritual, or process, those are the clues that it will probably work with your present belief system. When your belief system changes, you may find yourself attracted to different permission slips. Again, always remembering you are the ultimate permission slip because you're the one making the change anyway. The permission slip isn't actually doing it for you, but your belief system says that it will help you do it for yourself more easily. So by all means, whatever you're attracted to is what will work. And that's up to the synchronicity in your life and you simply following the vibrational path of passion.
It's wonderful. It's all designed to be wonderful for us.
It works automatically. It works easily and effortlessly as long as you don't contradict it with belief systems and definitions that are out of alignment with who you prefer to be. So,
thank you so much, Bashar. We really appreciate your
it is.
sharing and your exciting life that you are opening up for all of
Yes.
us.
Again, it is our passion and our pleasure to share these ideas with you, and we thank you with unconditional love and support. And now, allow yourselves to become prepared for the journey that takes place on your meditation.
Hi Bashar, my name is Carolina and I am from Colombia. My question is, I've seen 99% of the people struggle with things as payments, dues, health, and so on. Meanwhile, the 1% has all the money in the world. I don't think this is fair. And you've taught us that everything changes in this world except for the laws. So I want to know, how can we, as a collective, change this in this lifetime? Thank you so much, Bashar. Goodbye.
By broadening your definition of abundance and not focusing so much on the idea that money is the only form of it. Because the idea is that if you equalize all forms of abundance, such as being given a gift, such as having something to trade, such as imagination, such as communication, such as synchronicity, then you can allow whatever form of abundance, including the idea of money, as one representation of it, to come together in whatever amounts and percentages they need to form the 100% abundance that someone needs to continue to act on their excitement. But because there's been such a high degree of focus on money being the only really valid form of abundance on your planet, then you have this apparent unfair inequality. But it only seems that way because you're only focusing on one aspect of abundance. Remember, abundance is simply the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. And there are many ways to allow that to happen. So when you start to relax and expand your definitions of abundance, you will find that you can be equally abundant to anyone you're calling the 1% as long as you have the same capacity to do what you truly need to do when you need to do it. It doesn't matter what style of abundance you're using, you're still abundant, equally so. So it will balance out, and people who have more money will realize they don't need as much to do what they need to do, and then it will spread out a little bit more evenly among the population because everyone will be happy to use whatever form of abundance is necessary at any given moment, and the different forms will equalize themselves throughout the society.
Hello, hello.
And good day, good day.
Oh, oh, it's so exciting. Hi, Bashar. Hi, thank you.
All right, thank you. Please proceed with what you would like to discuss.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you about the formula.
Yes, please go ahead.
So first, I'd like to confirm that my definition is the one that you'd like us to be working with.
All right.
Then I'd like to share the process I've been using to sort of reverse engineer it and apply it for myself.
All right.
Okay. So as I understand it, the definition of the formula is to act on my highest excitement to the best of my ability without any insistence on a particular outcome, and stay positive and stay in a positive state.
All right. Generally, yes.
Okay. So the funny part about this for me is if I'm following the formula and being in the flow, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just in the flow.
Yes,
And
exactly.
exactly. So then there are the times when if I'm either a little neutral or maybe a little negative, kind of a little like thoughts are a little less cohesive or whatever, that's when I reflect on, that's when I reach for the formula to get back into the flow.
Yes. Also, remember, those moments are not just about going ahead blindly, but the idea of recognizing why something may have shifted in your vibrational state and getting in touch with the belief system that may have caused the shift. Remember, the tools that come along automatically with the formula, one of which being the reflective mirror that may reveal to you as you are flowing what within you as a belief isn't allowing you to flow. So the very idea of discovering some belief within you that is not representative of your excitement is part of your excitement. And therefore, it's not about just rushing forward, but staying with it and investigating the belief system that brought it up, because that's the whole point of that moment.
Right. I think I get that. I think
All right.
but I want to explain the process to get, I've been enjoying it and feels successful, but maybe there's some more insights. Just like what you just said, there's might be some more in it for me. So
all right.
I've sort of reverse engineered it, because if I'm feeling a little neutral, or when I get that reflection that is, sort of disrupts the flow, the word act in the beginning of the formula feels like a big, because I'm like, am I acting on my high? The answer is no. So what I did to soften it for myself is I actually begin with the sort of end in mind. I go to the staying in a positive state.
Yes.
And so I start at the end and I get myself in a positive state. I sort of soothe myself. I remember everything's here to serve me. I'll take a more detailed look at it now about the beliefs now with that reminder.
Yes, in a sense, looking at the belief is part of the formula, but the idea is that the formula is a circle, no beginning and no ending, so you can start anywhere within it.
Okay, that is so exciting. That's wonderful confirmation, because I've been using it like remaining positive, because then the without insistence part,
yes,
for me, if I feel I should do something or I need to do something, that feels like, it's often, I think I need to do this to get that.
You're making it conditional, in other words.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And that doesn't feel good. That feels like insistence. And so I back off it.
Yes. It can.
So I've been backing off of it, and then I return back to that remaining positive, and then I'm able to go through without insistence, resistance kind of stuff.
Or assumption. Remember, that's in there too. Remember, it's no assumption, no insistence.
No assumption.
Yes, because the no assumption part is you don't always know exactly why your excitement came in the form that it did.
Right.
So you don't want to impose an assumption that the form it came in is what actually has to come to fruition.
Got it. Yeah, that's really helpful. That's really helpful reminder. Yeah, because I may be inspired to start a task that I'll never see through, but that helped me launch to another thing and another thing.
As long as it is done within that positive state, as long as you are clear that you're not the one dampening your excitement to stop doing the task, then yes, it is a natural waning of the excitement that tells you something else needs to be acted on at that moment, since you're no longer capable of experiencing your passion in that thing. Again, as long as you're not the one blocking it.
I really appreciate that assumption part.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. And then the part about best of my ability, I used to give myself a hard time about that, because I feel like I thought it was performance based, like
no, not really.
Stronger, smarter.
No. It is simply, yes, on one level, do your best, but it also means look at the parameters in which you are acting. Some things will not simply allow you to go down a certain path, including synchronicity. Remember, there's positive and negative synchronicity, but I don't mean negative in the bad sense. I mean negative in the sense that it might show you not only the idea of an opportunity you can act on, but it might also reveal to you opportunities or pathways that are not your path at that moment and prevent you from acting on them.
Right.
So the idea is to honor whatever the parameters are in your particular society or culture as well that you've agreed to abide by. For example, some people on your planet have misinterpreted the idea that acting on your excitement means they can ignore your laws. That's not what we mean. The idea is to acknowledge the parameters that you've agreed to in your society, because if you understand that you have agreed to them, then breaking those parameters isn't necessary in order for you to experience what you need based on the actions you take. So use it as a guideline that you can work within those parameters, unless, of course, it excites you to change them through the system that allows you to do so. But if that's not something you're excited to do or not something you're able to do, then the parameters are there as a guiding mechanism. It's not about tearing through them or breaking them.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yes.
And I appreciate the confirmation, because I had written here like what I'm using the best of my ability, that part of the formula,
Yes.
how that I'm using that to trust the synchronicity. Things will either unfold easily and flow, or it'll be disruptive or difficult, or, stub my toe, lose my keys.
Yes, and again, always at that moment, make sure you're not the one dampening the excitement. But if you're not, then that's the synchronicity telling you this isn't your path right now.
So is a way that I would dampen my excitement is to be anxious, or how would I dampen my excitement?
Yes, you might be unconsciously afraid of moving forward on the thing that actually would be representative of your passion. Therefore, you
Right.
will kill the excitement so that you have an excuse not to move forward by saying, oh, well, that doesn't excite me anymore. When in fact it actually could, if you would get in touch with the belief that is making it appear not to be. And that can come from a negative fear-based belief by saying, oh, if you go in that direction, something bad will happen, so don't go that way. You'll rationalize it through the negative belief.
Yes, that seems very true. I've had that experience, so I appreciate having that extra filter to make sure I'm not the one doing it, that it really is
It's always very important because, again, the formula is like an instruction manual, and you have to follow the instructions precisely in order for it to be clean, in a sense.
Oh, that is so wonderful. Thank you. That is so helpful. And
All right.
it's
Very
helpful
good.
confirmation. It's wonderful. And it helps me have now I have for whatever is next, the next,
Yes, yes.
evolution of that. Thank you
All right.
so
Well,
much.
thank you.
Hello, Bashar. My name is Alex. I'm from Thailand. I have a question for you is about how to find my passion. So recently, I've been doing a lot of things that doesn't give me any motivation to keep on going, and I've been procrastinating for quite a long time because I couldn't find the things that give me the motivation. So my question for you is, how can I discover my passion to do things that makes me money and give me the motivation to keep on going? Thank you very much.
Well, clearly, this might require a back and forth to really dig deeply into this particular subject. But at the same time, we can say you are clearly passionate about procrastinating. So the idea is to find out what you're afraid will happen if you don't procrastinate. That would be simply based on a belief you have that something in your so-called future actions will actually cause you more pain, more difficulty, more suffering than simply holding back. So the idea is to get deeper into an investigation of your belief systems, because again, remember, all of you are motivated, absolutely motivated to do those things you believe serve you and to never do the things that don't serve you. So if you find that you're unable to move forward in the things you know could serve you, that must mean you have a belief system that says that moving forward would not serve you better than simply staying where you are. Once you find out why you're holding on to that belief, which, as I said, usually means you're afraid that something worse will happen if you do move forward, and you let that belief go as nonsensical because it's not a fact that that will happen, then you might start finding yourself more willing to act on things that are representative of your passion that can support you in a variety of ways, because you'll have reversed the motivational mechanism by no longer being afraid that moving forward will be worse than where you are.
Hello.
And good day to you.
And good day to you, sir.
Oh, sir, we are being formal today. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I have a question about intuition in communication.
Yes, speak up, please.
No problem. Is the action of intuition a communication that is happening of something of our higher selves, or is it something that's beyond us, like, say, a creator or a guide? In that process...
Well, it can be other things, but it always comes through your own higher mind, so that your higher mind can deliver it to your physical mind in some way, shape, or form that allows you to experience the harmony between your physical and higher mind. So it can come from a spirit guide, it can come from other sources, but it will always pass through what's relevant for you in terms of the higher mind.
Okay. So the second part I have of the question is, there's an object that I've just come across that helps translate plants, and it's a box that allows it to go through musical notes.
All right.
And there's a musician who is playing with plants.
Yes.
And so in that process, it's translating the music, and it sounded like jazz.
Yes.
What the notes were creating. So is this a way for us to be able to use more in the future?
Yes.
And in that, same thing with musical instruments. As a musician, when I play, I can pick up a different instrument from different people. Am I more so connecting with the actual instrument's intelligence, or a higher being that's maybe in the instrument that was created, or an imprint of something?
Why is it always or? Why not and?
Well, that's the key question, is when I'm communicating with the instrument,
Yes.
is it more of myself that's processing through the instrument, or am I connecting with something that's within the instrument itself?
Again, why is the question an or question instead of an and one? Yes, to both.
Okay, so thank you.
Yes.
So when that's happening, as the musician's playing,
Yes.
are we also communicating through our guides
Yes.
and the instrument, or the imprint of whatever the wood?
As you are playing an instrument, the instrument is playing you. Yes.
And then the song being created in that moment, is that something what we could call a harmonic resonance?
Yes.
So our connection is essentially, it wouldn't happen without the two of us, but is there a third part in there too?
Always.
And what is that third part?
It is the simulacrum expression that makes sense in your reality. It's the interpretation that makes sense to you in the focus that you are creating in your consciousness. The expression that is germane and relevant for the reality and the way that you're experiencing it.
So essentially, the idea of a harmonic resonance is it's three parts.
Yes, you understand the idea of a Venn diagram in your reality?
A little
of
bit.
a vesica piscis?
Can you describe
the two circles that overlap to form a third area that is common to both of them?
That makes perfect sense. Yes.
That's its own reality. That's its own archetypal consciousness. That's its own expression too.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's happening even in the channeling, because you're not speaking directly to the channel, and you're not speaking directly to me. You're speaking to a third consciousness, a simulacrum, a simulation that is germane for the translation of our thoughts into something that you understand in your reality.
So in a sense, the communication, when you look at somebody and there's no words, but that feeling is that universal connection.
Yes, it's the reality you are co-creating with one another that you agree to communicate through as a third reality that is common to both of you, because each of you are creating your version of it in your own unique reality.
Thank you. That clarifies a lot of what I've been coming to, my own intuition.
All right. Because if you were to interact directly with us, you would find us to be very different than what you're experiencing now. Not that there aren't some similarities to our consciousness or our personality, but by interacting with us directly, we would be something very different than what you're experiencing here. This is a third consciousness, a third personality, a third identity that makes sense in your reality.
Thank you.
Yes. Have fun.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
All right. Well, we thank you for the co-creation. Good day.
Good day. Cheers.
Hi, Bashar. I'm Erin from Shepherdstown, West Virginia. I have a question about Sasani reproduction. I have heard most of the time when you talk about the creation of a new Sasani baby, you refer to having two parents forming an energy bubble between them, and a new baby is formed within that. But I have also heard you mention that it is possible for there to be more than two parents directly involved in the process of creating a baby with the energy bubble. I would like clarification on this because most of the time I just hear you mentioning two. Can you confirm that sometimes there's more than two involved? And is that very common to have more than two parents involved in the creation of the energy bubble? Thank you.
Yes. And in a sense, yes, it's not uncommon. It's not necessarily always necessary, but it's not uncommon. It depends on what vibrational states are relevant to be there for the newborn, what it is they, as a spirit, have selected to absorb from different identities in the creation of their own. So, yes, it can be more than two, and quite often it is.
Hey.
Good day.
Hello, everyone. Hello,
Good
Bashar.
day, good day, good day.
I'm Jason.
All right.
Transmitting from Sedona, Arizona.
All right.
I'm fascinated with Taurus energy. I would love to discuss the dynamic flow of our electromagnetic field as a Taurus and the heart generating that field and the anatomy and physiology. What does it look like? Is it flowing both counterclockwise and clockwise?
Yes.
And is it going up the spine and out the crown and back, circulating back down?
Well, that depends. But in describing the flow within the torus itself, it is going in more than one direction, and it is a woven sort of double spiral in the sense that it's flowing this way and flowing this way and flowing this way and flowing this way. Does that make sense?
A double spiral, double figure eight.
Both directions, a double spiral in both directions. If you imagine that the torus is made out of thin lines around it, going around it and around it in one direction, then also have the lines go, shall we say, crossing it in the other direction, and then having the lines go in this direction and also crossing it in this direction. Does that make sense? Do you understand the illustration?
I think so. Okay. And in terms of the anatomy and physiology, I know you answered this before. We are a manifestation projection inside our soul, our physical body is. Can you give us the anatomy and physiology details of what our soul looks like outside our physical body?
Well, the soul itself, in a sense, is a particular expression or pattern of light, of electromagnetic energy that has many different kinds of radiating and outward and inward radiating patterns simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Sort of like if you imagine dropping a stone in a pond and seeing the ripples go outward, but then the ripples bouncing off the edge of the pond and going back toward the center. But imagine that happening simultaneously. And then imagine that in multiple dimensions, multiple directions.
Mm-hmm. Is the torus field nested? We have bigger and smaller torus fields nested within each other for multidimensional being?
When you say in each other, do you mean the physical persona, the higher mind, and the soul?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as far as our holographic bubble that we are creating, and can you talk about where the belief systems are stored in our morphogenetic fields and how that translates to our thoughts and emotions that have been stored into our cellular memory?
Well, the field itself is the storage mechanism. If you're talking about the idea of it being a holographic structure, then you will understand it. It's stored everywhere.
Within the bubble?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yes, in other words, you tap into whatever you're the vibration of wherever you are, because everything is here and now. Therefore, what you're calling the morphogenic field is simply a projection of consciousness that makes it seem like it occupies space and time, but that's an illusion. It's all here and now. So in a sense, holographically, you can tap into anything, anywhere, including belief systems.
Okay, I notice we have an internal compass, and whenever I'm in my manifestation flow or my synchronicity flow, I will get a shot of bliss. My hair stands up on my arms, energy goes up my spine. Can you describe it so we can understand this better, internal compass? And
well, there are different ways to understand this concept of an internal compass. What you're describing is the vibrational version. In other words, you're sensitive to certain frequencies that when you align with them will create more of a superconductive or even a hyperconductive flow of energy through your neurological system, because you are now synchronized and harmonized with the frequency that is closer to your essential core frequency. The idea of a physiological orientational compass within you is the product of the magnetite that exists in your sinus cavities that orients you to the magnetic field of the earth.
okay. And I think I have one more question is, in terms of how the energy is flowing from the sun into the earth, is it coming in clockwise from the North Pole, counterclockwise out the South Pole?
Yes.
And the return.
Wait a minute. One moment. No, the opposite of what you said.
Counterclockwise from the north down, and then clockwise out the south?
Yes.
Okay.
Will that do?
Thank you for this opportunity. That was all I had.
All right. We thank you for the co-creation of the interaction. Good day.
Good day to you.
Hello, Bashar. Is there anything substantial about existence or the universe that you don't know? Do you still have questions? And you once mentioned that the universe is slightly positively charged. What is behind that charge? What causes it? And can it be called love? Thank you.
Love is the vibration of existence itself. The idea of the positive and negative charge and the slightly positive bend to existence is because of the third position of neutrality. The third position in the middle of positive and negative is neutral, and that is the balance point that still allows for the awareness that you are free to choose what you prefer. The very ability to be free to choose what you prefer, if you want to put it in these terms, is slightly positive. That's why it's bent slightly in the positive direction. But of course there are things we don't know. So, like you, we don't know what we don't know until we discover something new that we didn't know. So of course there are still questions. Discovery, exploration, never ends as far as we can tell. There's no such thing as an ending to it. So of course there are things we don't know, because there are things that are not relevant for us to know. And there are things we don't know that would be relevant for us to know that we will discover in the process of exploration of ourselves and existence. But unconditional love itself is the frequency. It's your translation of the frequency of existence itself. It's unconditional. It allows you to create whatever you prefer, whatever you believe is true at any given moment, positive, negative, and neutral. And to you, good day.
I just want to take a brief moment to say thank you so much for all the information you and Darryl bring through. My life has become absolutely magical
All right.
as a result of following the formula.
Yes, well, thank you for choosing to do that and creating the magic in your life.
And on the topic of magic, my first
Yes.
question relates to a series of experiences that my husband and I have been having.
Yes.
We've been synchronistically guided to the particular permission slip of doing some shamanic ceremonies.
Yes.
During one of these ceremonies, I started to notice something flying out of the corner of my eye, just a gray flying blur. And at first, I was only seeing it out of the corner of my eye. And then during later ceremonies, it started flying in front of us and it started engaging our animals. And then we realized, oh, our animals can see this thing too.
Probably before you did.
Yes, I think so. I think so for sure. And it just looks like a flying blur. It's something that moves really, really fast.
Yes.
And throughout the ceremonies that we've done, we've had more and more contact with this being, to the point where one time my husband had fallen asleep and I saw it again out of the corner of my eye. I was able to follow it. And then suddenly it grazed both of my hands as it flew by. And it was so startling and it was so warm to the touch. The temperature was very, very warm.
It's because it's on a higher frequency and therefore it activated more molecular action in your hands.
Right. And when that happened, I almost couldn't believe that it touched me. And so as if it could read my mind, it repeated the whole sequence again, grazed my hands again.
Yes.
And again, it was super warm.
It's attempting to instill within you the vibratory level that would allow you to synchronize with it so you can see it more clearly.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And so occasionally I've had some interesting telepathic impressions from this being.
Yes.
One time it said something like, I play with the animals all the time. Feel free to join us if you can be in the moment. And this message came with a feeling of mischievous giggle.
Yes, well, you're dealing with an elemental. This is part of the idea of the third phase that we mentioned, having to do with the idea of the cryptic and shamanic journey. You are interacting with an elemental consciousness that is attempting to help you understand what frequency you need to rise to in order to match its frequency in order to be able to perceive it more clearly.
That makes sense. And when you say elemental, is there anything more you can give me about that? Like, is it a fairy? Does it have a name?
It can express itself in a number of different ways. For now, we have to leave it at the process and the experience you are having before we do anything to crystallize or concretize this idea into something a little bit less frequency than what it's already giving you. In other words, we don't want to create a definition or a symbol for you that would actually stop you from exploring the higher frequency.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm getting this feeling that this being wants me to communicate to other people that they are around us, that they are around
Yes.
most, that they're
Yes.
just waiting to make contact, that they want
Well, they're not waiting, but the idea is that they understand that it can be done and that this is the time when your awareness that it can be and can be enhanced, which is why, in a sense, we're now at the timing where more of the cryptic meditational exercises can be given. Again, it's about perfect timing. So what you're experiencing is your awareness of the timing of why at this particular moment it is the perfect timing to allow people to enhance their ability by going further into the cryptic meditations.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes
I know.
sense. And the animals are always seeing them, right?
Pretty much. Not always, but pretty much, yes.
So when I'm hanging out with my cat and my cat suddenly looks above my head and follows something with their eyes, is that the same thing?
Well, they're seeing something that is on a higher frequency plane. It isn't necessarily all the time what you're dealing with in this conversation, but they may be seeing something else that is invisible to your senses, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm really interested in this elemental thing, so I think I'm gonna go explore that.
All right, then do so and have fun.
Thank you very much. Ha'atu.
Ha'atu and aveo.
Aveo.
Hi Bashar, I'm Joe from Osaka, Japan. I'd like to ask you about veganism. So I became a vegan about 4 months ago, and it's been serving me pretty well. There are multiple reasons why I became a vegan, but ultimately it all comes down to this notion that you've talked about before, that people are expression of nature, not just isolated individuals within it. I think that living in harmony with other animals is crucial for us to go to the next level, if you will. So here are my questions. First one, what's your thought on veganism? Second one, is it have to do with people's consciousness? I'm currently trying to spread the idea of veganism throughout Japan, which became one of my passions. Thank you, Bashar. Bye.
Living in harmony with anything is essential for you to continue to raise your frequency. Veganism can be a result of living on a certain frequency level where you simply lose the urge to eat certain things that have to do with animal product. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way for everyone right away. In other words, don't force yourself. Let it be your natural biological urges to come and go. If you are centered within yourself, you will know what you're attracted to consume. Sometimes a body on your planet at this time may need certain amounts of meat protein, although most of you don't need as much as you think. But the idea, of course, is how it's done, how the relationship is formed. In many indigenous societies that hunt, remember that they're doing it in a way, generally speaking, or at least they used to, that is more in harmony with nature in the sense of culling the animals that are not necessarily the strongest. So the idea is that the animal itself, in its state of being, is choosing to be of service as the human is choosing to be of service to the animals in that particular kind of a relationship of consuming the animals that may be lessening the strength of the entire group of animals to allow the entire group of humans to also become stronger. But again, as you raise your frequency, you may simply naturally find that you're no longer gravitating or have the urge to eat what might be referred to as denser matter, and you might go for the lighter. But still remember that vegetables also have a consciousness. So again, as you evolve, you may eventually come to the point where you simply absorb energy directly, as we do in our civilization, because we don't eat anymore at all. But the idea is, again, that that doesn't mean that we're more spiritual or that we're better than you are. We simply exist on a different vibrational level that doesn't require those kinds of activities. And the animal life on our planet is symbiotic. They're not predatory. So no animal is ever killed in an exchange of energy. But again, don't in any way, shape, or form negatively judge yourselves for the state that you're at, because that'll only hold you back. Simply allow there to be a natural biological rhythm of what needs to go on, and just do your best to make sure that any relationship you have with an animal is the most natural connection, organic expression that it can be, no matter what that relationship may be. So that's how you evolve, is by letting what is be done in a more natural way and simply letting it change in its own natural timing.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
I'm so excited to be able to speak with you again.
We are excited as well.
So my first question has two parts to it.
Yes.
Have you observed other civilizations on other planets going through their awakening? And part of that process it includes those beings realizing and waking up to the fact that their leaders don't have their best interest in mind. And lastly, how does the Interstellar Alliance assist with those beings who are wanting to wake up and break free?
All right. First and foremost, yes, we are interacting with other civilizations who are going through their own awakenings. There are a few, relatively few, that are in a position of their awakening where they are experiencing the idea of oppression or control in the way that you're experiencing it on Earth. We find that that's relatively uncommon, at least in our experience with other civilizations. So the idea of their awakening doesn't necessarily involve some of the same techniques or approaches that are utilized with regard to our relationship to your world and the few other ones we have seen that might be somewhat similar to what you're going through and the way you're going through it in terms of your awakening. The Interstellar Alliance, just like some of the enhancing bodies in our own planetary civilization, simply work to enhance, expand, magnify, and amplify the idea of stability, of peace, and in magnifying and amplifying this synchronistically, it radiates a vibration out through the galaxy that allows people another option to tap into. And we remind them that they can. We remind them that that vibration is there for them. This is one of the things we are doing by sharing information with all of you, so that if you tap into it and harmonize with that vibration, that organizational synchronistic vibration that allows our society to operate on pure synchronism all the time, then you will start experiencing yourself, navigating yourself through different parallel versions of Earth that become more and more and more and more reflective of that particular vibrational experience. The idea of quote unquote breaking free is not exactly the definition to use, because it implies that you are somehow not capable of shifting in the way that you prefer to, that somebody can actually control you, that you are assuming you're in the same reality just because you can see them. So we would suggest you don't operate from that particular point of view, because that's, in a sense, what gives oppressors their power, or seems to, or at least creates the illusion that they have more power than they actually do, is to simply convince you that they can control you, that they can determine what reality you experience when they can't. So the idea is to start from a definition that says, just because I can see you, just because you are doing things that I don't prefer, doesn't mean I'm in the same reality. It's like there's a glass wall between you.
Okay.
Does that help?
It helps tremendously. Thank you. So just to add some more clarity on those planets and those civilizations, are there examples where other ET beings who are negative are, kind of try to come in and take advantage and oppress those beings who either A, have no clue that that's happening, or B, they don't know what to do? So I guess my question is, does the Interstellar Alliance assist in that way on that level?
To some degree, but what you're describing is exceedingly rare.
Exceedingly, okay.
Rare. In other words, it is rare that when beings have the capability of traveling to other planets with other civilizations, they will usually already have surpassed any need to oppress others in another star system, because they will have understood that the only way they can actually get there is to have a completely different understanding of their relationship to existence. And there would be no need to oppress anything, because there is more than enough for everyone. So the idea of control in an oppressive sense usually vanishes in most civilizations with the understanding of actually how to travel to the stars, because you start really experiencing the abundance of existence. And when you can acquire anything you need without hurting anyone else or yourself in order to acquire it, why would you spend the effort to try and control something when that would be a waste of time?
Right. Okay. You've also spoken about in previous transmission this time that we're going through right now. We are transitioning into our golden era that we're supposed to be experiencing in this decade. And you had mentioned that our old systems would be crumbling. However,
they are crumbling.
They are. It's lovely. And so the new systems are waiting in the wings, ready to come on up and just replace the old ones that are.
No. That's a very old-fashioned way of looking at it. They're not waiting in the wings. The idea of new systems must be created actively by people in the here and now. They're not waiting in the wings. Yes, there are some things that have been done that can be revived and applied, so to speak, but it's not the idea that they're just waiting in the wings. It requires the activity of people moving in those directions and taking those actions for those new systems to be applied and implemented.
Correct. So would examples of those new systems here on Earth be like Starlink, cryptocurrency, and Elon Musk? Would those be examples of?
Some aspects of those things, yes. Other aspects of them, not necessarily. Or some of them may be temporary as links and bridges to get you to something else.
Okay. But we're definitely transitioning and moving into that golden era.
Well, some of you are and some of you aren't.
Okay.
Because again, everyone has the free will to choose, and some people will choose some things that won't necessarily take them in that direction, because you cannot experience what you're not the vibration of.
Okay.
So, and again, remember, you don't change the world you're on. You're shifting yourself to other versions of Earth that are already reflective, that already exist, that are more reflective of the change you've made within yourself. So it doesn't really matter whether everyone on your planet chooses the same thing. You will experience as if some of them have by shifting to another world, another version of Earth, where there are already versions of them that are more in harmony with that version of Earth. It's not that the people you experienced before have necessarily changed. It's that there are other versions of them that are more like the world you're inhabiting.
Thank you, Bashar. I really appreciate this interaction and my unconditional love to you.
As do we.
Thank
you. To you. Good day.
Good day.
Hello, Bashar. My name is Chad, and I'm from Toronto, Canada. So my question for today is, what advice would you have for someone who is struggling with their gender identity? For example, why would a soul choose to incarnate as a male only to want to transition into a female later in life? Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Because on your planet, there's a great deal of denial of all the energies within a soul, within a spirit. And the idea of many people who are going through those kinds of transitions and identity shifts are to act as a reflection and a reminder to all beings that you contain nothing and everything, and that it is important for you to be who